So of course, if you're going to be doing this level of chapped lip to your actor, it's not going to be standalone as just the lip. There will be a full, complete look to this, whereas hypothermia, maybe they have a bit of frostbite, depending on how long they've been outside at this point. This typically is not something that you would just have from being outside for a few hours. This would be a prolonged period of time outside. I'm going to show you how to transition this lip look into a more complete hypothermia appearance to the face. I'm going to be using liquid latex for this. Again, we've double checked for allergies, and I'm using it in a disposable cup as well as with a cotton bud. This liquid latex, if you do use a brush with it, it will ruin your brushes. So it's much better to use something disposable that you don't care if it gets ruined at the end of the day. So what I want to do is just take a tiny little bit of this, a thin layer, and I'm going to put it around the nose. This is going to be to create the appearance of a 3D dry skin. Now before it dries, when it's in a thin layer, it will dry fairly quickly. So all I'm doing is just lightly tapping it onto the skin, which you can see it naturally starts to give a little bit of a dryness around the area. Latex does stick to itself, so when there's latex on this and you apply it to here, it will pull itself off. It's not like you put the latex on and then it just stays put. Latex will stick to latex. That is a big reason of why we, aside from allergy reasons, use latex-free sponges. If you were to be using a latex-based sponge with this, again, the latex-based sponge would pull the latex off. So taking a tiny little bit of this at a time and just lightly tapping around the areas that would get the most dry skin, which is typically around the nose. You can take a little bit on the top as well. Just to create more of a 3D realistic effect. If you find that the latex is pulling too much, just flip your Q-tip over and use the clean side of it. And again, the amount that you do will be determined by how long your actor has meant to have been outside, how far advanced the hypothermia is, all of those things that will be discussed prior to your design. Continuing this look down a little bit more down here. And as it dries too, you can allow it to dry slightly to all the way. And then you see me kind of flicking the product up. This will create a little bit more of the imperfect effect that I'm always talking about and give you more of this natural pulling. Key points are going to be around the nose, like I said. Also, you can do a little bit just on the corners of the mouth. Open your mouth a little bit. Having the actor open their mouth slightly to add a little bit inside of here is a good method. You can relax them. Then when they relax their mouth, allow it to dry and they open it back up, it will naturally rip in the position that the lip would rip if it had dryness on the outside edges. I'm going to add a little bit around the nose here. And you'll see I'm using my finger as a tool in some cases to pull a little bit of the latex up once it has dried down. Turn this way a bit. You can see it just gives this natural peel effect to the skin. You can also add a tiny little bit here on the cheeks. Don't need much, just something to give a little bit of 3D. Of course, if it's meant to be that they've been outside for a lot longer, you can go much more aggressively with this. And for example, if we were to just let this big patch dry down a bit and then slightly rip it open, we would have much more of an open wound look. Again, using the tools that you learned through the injury module can help you in this effect to give you the full-blown look. Turn this way. Maybe there's a little bit up here. Doesn't always have to be aggressive. Sometimes it's just a little bit. And sometimes a little bit can give you what you're looking for. I'm going to add a little bit more on the outside edge of the lip because I think that's a really gross effect. And maybe we'll do a little bit along the outside top here as well. You can continue and add a bit to the forehead as well if you're looking for a more aggressive version of this. But I'm going to let this completely dry down before we continue our painting. Now that our latex has dried, we can go in and continue painting the rest of the face. Now, again, as the body loses heat, it's going to turn from, especially her, Rosie has a lot of warm tone to her skin where she looks very healthy, she looks very tan, she looks very, you know, just kind of glowing. So what we want to do to make her look like she's been outside, she's got a little bit of hypothermia, she has been weathered from the actual elements outside, is take some of that away. So we're going to be using some cool tone here, which cool tone that we're using is a blue tone. Taking away some of the warmth in her skin and making it look cooler is going to give more of that effect. So I'm going to use one of our cut up sponges and a light wash of cool tone, kind of muddling all over the skin. Again, we don't want one flat wash. We're using the imperfect edge here. In some areas we'll have more than others. Close your eyes for me. Go over the eyes a bit as well. Blues and purples and greens, again, are all warning signs when it comes to the skin. Those are not what you want to be seeing when it comes to healthy bodies and healthy skin tones. So seeing these sort of cool tones running through give the idea that something is wrong here. It's almost as if the entire body has a slight bruise to it, in a sense. Now think of this as if it is the foundation to the skin. If you were comparing this to beauty makeup, this would be kind of your base that you would start with before you go in. Now it is important to note too, if you're going to be adding in the latex and things like that, I prefer to do the latex first. I find it easier to manipulate the latex without makeup on prior. But if you're using especially these alcohol activated makeups, you can do the alcohol activated first and then go on top if you'd like. It's a personal preference. You'll find what works best for you. As always, again, if the neck and the chest are going to be exposed, go ahead and continue this muddling down. And don't forget the ears as well, especially if the ears are exposed. The ears will become part of the costume. If you forget the ears, imagine you have this nice cool tone to everywhere else and then the ears are still very warm. It doesn't look very natural. It kind of takes the viewer out of the look that you're trying to create. Same with under the neck. Make sure you get under the neck so it all blends down. If we have shoulders exposed, we're going to continue on to the shoulders. Any skin that's exposed, you guys get the idea. If the skin is exposed, it is part of the makeup look. It's never just on the face. Unless they have a turtleneck coming up to here and a hat that covers everything here, then everything else will need to be continued in. Be aware of the hairline as well. That's another thing to pay attention to. As with the ears, if you're seeing the hairline here, you want to make sure that it continues into the skin, slightly into the hairline. Now be careful with colors, especially if someone has very light blonde hair. You want to, of course, you don't want to paint blue on top of their blonde hair, but you don't want to miss this part of the skin. You don't want to give a fake ring around the face where there's a natural skin tone color and then this one. It should blend cohesively as if it is the real skin tone. Now that we've toned the skin down to more of a cool tone versus a warm tone, you can see it just took a little bit of the life out of her face. It looks like there's not as much blood flowing through, and it looks like she's sick, there's something wrong, she's cold, she's just lost something. Something's not quite right here. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to intensify the dark circles a bit. I'm going to use a little bit more of a purple tone for this one, and a fluffier brush. Look straight up for me. And just go around where the actual eye socket is. You want to give the illusion that the eyes are more sunken in. That this person is exhausted, the eyes are more sunken in. It's very similar to what we did for the crying makeup, but we're going a bit more aggressive on this one. We're going much more where the actual eye socket is, and you can feel, if you're unfamiliar with the anatomy, it is a good idea to have images that you look up of the human skull to get an idea of where the bone is and where the bone isn't. That will help you in giving an anatomically accurate image. Now, you can feel it too. If you feel right around here, you can feel where Rosie's ocular bone is. You don't want to go beyond that because that takes you out of it. That's not considered the eye area. So what you want to do is you want to paint inside of this ocular bone area. Close your eyes for me. Having them close their eyes too, adding a good bit of darkness in this area, the inner eye, and lightly tapping around. Again, just creates a little bit more of a visible bruising effect, and that there is something wrong here. I like the fluffy brush for this as opposed to the sponge because we're working around the eye area. It gives you a bit more control over where you're putting the product, whereas for the face, I like the sponge very well. Close your eyes. And again, the two eyes shouldn't match completely. They should have similar tones to them, but they shouldn't completely match, otherwise it doesn't look natural. Other areas you're going to want to add a little bit of this purple tone are going to be around the nose. Now we're going to go much more aggressive with this because we do want it to look like she's been outside for a while. So think of if you've ever been outside and you're really cold, it's not just the sides of your nose that gets some redness and some purple to it. It's actually this entire top part. Again, if you look at the human anatomy, you'll see that the actual bone of the nose only goes in this top area. This whole part is cartilage. So this part here is what really hits the elements the most, so it's going to have the most effect to it. So tapping some redness and a little bit of that purple tone still. Something, of course, to think of. As strange as it feels to the actor, you do have to continue this into the actual nasal socket. Otherwise, it does not give the effect that you're looking for. Now, I'm going to take a little bit more of a red. I really want to intensify this nose area a bit since we did add the actual peeled off skin look. I want to add a little bit more redness in some key areas, which is pretty much just on the outsides here. And fanned a little bit down onto the upper lip. I'm working in very thin washes of color here. Again, we don't want to go too opaque with this. You want to go fairly translucent and lightly build up. At the end of the day, it's always better to go a little bit less because it gives you a little bit more of a realistic appearance to it. Layering colors as well, like how I did a bit of a purple tone. Now I'm adding more of a red, kind of old blood color into this. Will also give more dimension to the look. So you're not just using one flat color, you're giving multiple tones to give you this effect here. I'm going to continue a little bit more on the outside of the lip here. Just fluff it around a bit more, down a little bit. Adding a bit more onto the chin area. Think of the big picture. Again, it's never going to be just one area of the face. If there's something wrong with it, unless, of course, it happens to be an injury where they do just get hit in one area of the face, something like this is a full character look. So this will be a full cohesive look and it should all blend together. So using the same colors in different areas of the face will give you a better effect. Adding a bit of the redness as well on those areas of the cheeks that we added that ripped skin look. We'll intensify that, making it look like she got a cold burn, which sounds like an oxymoron, but if you've ever been burned by the wind or the cold, you'll be familiar with it. I'm gonna add a bit up here as well. You can see, again, it is similar to the workout effect. It is giving a slight similar effect as all of the things that we've been doing in this. Look up for me. I'm taking a bit of the red as well underneath the eyes here because I want this to be a bit more aggressive. I don't think she looks quite cold enough. I want to bring a little bit more of that blood to the surface and give her a bit of a struggle here. Sorry, Rosie. Now this would be for someone who has been outside for quite a while but hasn't actually reached frostbite level yet. Once they reach to frostbite level, you would want to add in some really actually black tones and deep purples that will give more of the illusion of frostbite. And the areas that you will want to do that in, again, the nose is going to be the #1 area, the lips as well, and then the fingertips. The fingertips and the toes, if they're exposed, those are the key points that you want to add some frostbite because that is where it will happen. You could even get a little bit around the eyelids as well. Close your eyes. Just filling in where you think there needs to be a little bit more. Close your eyes for me. The eyes, the nose, and the lips are the key areas where you see a pretty significant change once the cold and the elements hit them. So that's really where you want most of the focus to give you the best effect. Another thing you can do that I'm a very big fan of is adding some more visible veins to the face. By adding visible veins to the face, it also gives the illusion that the skin is thinner and there's something quite not right. So veins, I like to do with a very tiny brush, the same brush that we use to do the tiny little details in the mouth works really well here. And a blue and a purple, if you think about your veins when you look at them color-wise, that's about where you want to go. However, for this, remember, we're making it look like she's been outside for a while, so it's going to be more of an aggressive look. Look straight up for me. So I like to add a little bit of veining just lightly underneath the eye area for more drama. Now you'll see The technique here is you're barely touching it to the face. You're not drawing a straight line. Veins are rarely in a straight line. So taking it and kind of just lightly touching to the face and then just slightly wiggling down or wiggling up, wherever it may be. Look at pictures of veins as much as you can and look at your own veins if you can see them visible to get an idea of how they would flow together. It's better to go lighter with them and smaller in size versus being very large. But adding these little bit of veins will give you an extra level of detail to bring more to the look. Close your eyes for me. I like to do the majority of my vein work around the eyes. The eyes really make a big difference in what the outcome of the makeup is. And they don't have to be large as well. See how just a tiny little portion of a vein being visible is going to give you a pretty big effect. That there's something wrong here, not quite right. Look up for me. After you have some vein details added into the look, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to this chapped skin area and just put tiny little dabs of blood in there to make it look as if there was a little bit of blood that came through with how chapped it was, but not so much that it's dripping. Because again, this is not meant to be that full-blown of a look. It's just she's been outside for a really long time, maybe a week or so or a few days. So she's a little beat up by the outside elements. Taking our tiny little brush and working with the little bit that we have here, you just see me tap. I want to just push this into the deeper areas to, again, this is going to highlight and contrast the actual dry, dead skin areas and pop it out a bit more to give it more of that 3D look. Especially on this inside of the nose area is a good place to add a little bit of muddled blood as you're wiping your nose constantly, so there's going to always be more irritation and more chance of bleeding around that area than anywhere else. Again, some of the areas aren't going to be as bad as others, so just working imperfectly but hitting all the points that you worked with. I'm going to add a bit more to the outside of the lips as well. Since we added a little bit of latex there, now we have more 3D. That's with just paint and a little bit of latex. That can give you the illusion of more of a hypothermia, being outside, cold sort of look. Another layer you can add to this is a product called Ultra Ice. Now, we're going to be taking this with a spatula and taking some out into one of our little cups to work off of. Now, this is a product that you can use water to help mold this product, and you can take it, what I like to do is actually use it directly with the spatula. Now, this is going to kind of mimic the effect of ice on the skin. So think of where there would be ice if you were outside for a while. For example, underneath the nose specifically, where the nose would be running, maybe coming down a bit more as well. This is a fairly thick modeling compound, so it's not as runny as the glycerin that we used. Of course, you could use the glycerin somewhat in a pinch if you had it, but something like this is going to be better because it gives more 3D illusion to it. So think of where there may be some some frozen runny nose from being stuck outside. Putting a little bit in this area is going to intensify the look. And if you need to thin it down to help blend it, again, you can use a little bit of water to do so. You can also take a tiny little bit of this. Imagine when you're outside, you're going to perspire a little bit because your body is just shivering from cold, and you're going to sweat a little bit. So the sweat will naturally freeze into the hair because it sticks out from the skin. So taking a little bit of this and just tapping a little bit into the eyebrows will help to give the icy effect of there being ice stuck in there. Same thing with the eyelashes. You can take a tiny bit of this. Close your eyes for me. Have your actor close their eyes when you do this. And you just want a little bit of this on the tips of the lashes. This will also kind of clump the eyelashes together and make it look like they've just been kind of messed around with a bunch. Maybe you were probably crying at some point, and the water from your tears dried into the lashes and then froze together. So it may not be the entire eyelash, but it's going to be definitely the tips of the eyelashes is where the most perspiration would hang on to. And just kind of mold the eyelashes together into this imperfect way. Now this will dry down. It will take a bit to kind of settle in. But it will give you more of an icy effect if that's the route that you're going for. Open your eyes. Look towards the camera. Now you can see how changing the appearance of the eyelashes and the eyebrows does another layer of effect to give you this iced out look.